So the question is, how was the weekend? Well, the better question is actually, at what stage do we officially crown us the greatest sporting nation on the planet right now? What a weekend of sport. Goodness me. From the Springboks winning with 14 men. By the way, we've got 3 red cards so far this year. And I think we've conceded like 17 points, something stupid, after all 3 of them. Won all 3 of those games. Then, Bafana, at the same time as the Boks are busy operating, they get a result. And then one of the greatest test victories in Proteas history on Sunday. It's been an absolute miserable weekend in Gauteng, but goodness me, it has been phenomenal. Phenomenal. And I didn't have Manchester United or Ferrari to ruin my weekend. So I'm sitting here on absolute cloud 9, people. Where do we begin? Let's start with the Rassie Erasmus masterclass that we saw on Saturday, and so much to speak about. Let's start with the disaster class that is World Rugby. I mean, are you actually kidding me? I covered 3 games on Saturday. There was a card in every single one of them. There was a card in Scotland versus Argentina, France versus Fiji, some ridiculous cleanouts as well. Throughout the entire weekend, we saw so many different penalizable offences, yellow card offences, red card offences. But riddle me this. Take one guess, which was the only team to receive a straight red card? Which was the only team to receive a straight red card last weekend as well? Which is the only team that has received 3 red cards this year, and all of them straight red cards in a year where the 20-minute red card was being rolled out across Rugby Championship, across Six Nations, across this Automation Series, as well as the bunker. To basically say, we don't have to spend half an hour looking at incidents on the field and then giving straight red cards and stuff like that. No, instead we will, do a yellow card. The bunker will have a check, and if it's a red card, then we can look at a 20-minute red card and let a player come back in. And basically limit straight red cards for intentional or else highly dangerous acts. What it should say is intentional or Springbok acts at this rate, because you look at Josh Adams on Sunday launching himself into a player's head who's stuck in a ruck. He's got absolutely nothing to gain, can't even counter ruck, goes flying in there, yellow card, upgrade to a red, 20-minute red card. Franco Mostert goes down, adjusts, gets low, hits Polygar busy in the chest. That becomes a straight red card. It is ridiculous. And the Springboks, I've rightfully said that they are not happy with what's going on, and they are very frustrated and disappointed with the decisions that are being made. And rightly so. Rugby has gone in such a dangerous position at the moment because these decisions are awful. And we don't want to be, a nation where we start, crying wolf every single time we get a decision and saying, oh, there's an agenda against us and it's unfair. But you start to look at the patterns and you sit there saying, Ty Byrne gets away, gets his red card rescinded. Franco Mostert gets a straight red card, and we wait to see the ban. If they do not rescind that red card, it'll be an absolute joke. So World Rugby currently ruining the game consistently with decisions over the last 4 or 5 years are continuously getting worse. And it's not just the match officials. Although James Dolman, that decision was absolutely ridiculous. I hate talking about match officials. I hate speaking about referees, but that decision was awful. Regardless, the Boks got the job done. Because we are the GOATs at the moment. And I tell you what, this weekend, before we even get to this weekend though, let's talk about it. What a shit show of a game. We had 4 substitutions before the 27th minute. 4 of our 8. This whole bomb squad idea, out the window. No, we had to put everybody on. And it was a tough game. It was a tight game. And it was always going to be a tight game. Rusty said, this was going to be a very tough game. He said that this was going to be tight. The France game took a lot out of the Springboks. Then you get a red card. Now you have to play with an extra man. We're actually down to 13 at a stage. Thankfully, Italy went down to 14. It just shows you the amount of cards we're getting. It's just getting a little ridiculous. But do we not cope? Do we not find ways of getting results? Does this team not find ways of putting on big scores every single weekend? And it's just phenomenal how certain players keep... I mean, some of the cameos we saw off the bench, Grant Williams, Marnie, but Kwagga Smith, that was one of the greatest cameos we've seen. Just comes on, gets over the advantage line. He adds a very different... I mean, that tackle, for example, I mean, Paula got busy back into a different dimension, but he adds a different type of physicality. It's not the brute force of a Jasper Wiese, but because he's so quick into contact, it's like a violent carry where he's just like... It's relentless. It's not just one hit. As soon as he hits you, he's going again and he's fighting and it's just so cool to watch. Players coming on and making a difference. Kane and Moody, some phenomenal takes in the air. That little around the side, they show them the inside, the outside. Putting the goose step. Edel van der Merwe coming off originally, then being put back on, doing the business. The Bok depth is mental. And then now we go into the grudge match this weekend. And it is a grudge match. Ireland have had our number more than any other team in the last few years. They have become our bogey side. You know, if you look at the All Blacks, for example, I think we have lost like 2 in the last 5 or 6 or 1 in the last 4, whatever it is. Our record recently against the All Blacks is tremendously good. 2-0 last year, 2 the year before, I think it was 3 actually the year before. And so yeah, like I think we've lost like 1 in the last 6 games against the All Blacks. Ireland, however, we've won 1, I think, in the last 3 or 4. Could actually be 1 in the last 4 that we've actually won. So this is our bogey team this weekend. It's also the only team in the top 4 that we haven't beaten this year. We've beaten the All Blacks, hammered the All Blacks, hammered France. England's now talking about, we think we can beat you. No. Just sit down, England. Put yourself back on the couch. Put yourself back in your box. We'll see you next year in June, July. We beat Ireland this weekend, and this will be one of the most dominant, probably the most dominant period a Boks team has ever had. And now we've got another trophy we can potentially win with the introduction of the Nations Championship. Imagine we're going to win that next year. Interesting concept, though. Very interesting concept. I think it's this whole North versus South thing is trying to lean into the rugby tribalism, and we are very tribal, which I think is quite a smart marketing move in terms of trying to create that sort of feeling of us against them. The problem is, I think, is that there is still a lot of inter-hemisphere tribalism. I still think that there's quite a lot between All Blacks and Springbok fans in terms of that being a big... I mean, it's called the greatest rival for a reason. So I don't think we're ever going to be allies. If you look overseas, for example, there's still massive tribalism between like a Scotland and England, for example. They don't also... England doesn't support Scotland when Scotland plays. Scotland certainly doesn't support England when they play. So there's a certain amount of tribalism. I think a lot of Southern Hemisphere fans will always support an Argentina against Northern Hemisphere side. Maybe in Australia, always a Japanese probably, always a Fiji. But North versus South is an interesting concept because at the end of the day, it basically hasn't changed too much from a November test point of view. You know, the Southern Hemisphere side is still going to the North, still going to Europe, but the mid-year tests are very different because there's no longer going to be, during these years, a 3-match Ireland tour or 2-match Ireland tour or a 2-match French tour and the likes of that. Instead, you're going to have 3 tests against 3 different opposition in July now. So the Boks have got England, Scotland, Wales. Then at the end of the year, we go away to Italy, France, Ireland. It does mean that during this the Rugby Champion, the Nations Championship, get there in the end years, we play all 6 Northern Hemisphere sides, which is quite cool. It does also mean that next year we probably have the greatest Springbok rugby calendar year ever. In 2026, the Springboks will play France, Ireland, England, Scotland, Wales, Italy, and the All Blacks times 4. Those are our tests, confirmed. Plus potentially some other tests here and there. It's going to be absolutely mental. And I'm looking forward, and there potentially will be another test to hear, maybe a Barbarians game or the likes of that. And hopefully then a final potentially, a Nations Championship final, or at least a 3rd, 4th, or the likes of that, or 2nd place playoff, a 3rd place playoff, 4th place playoff. Those are the actual playoffs they're having. So we've got some very interesting games next year, which is going to be quite nice from that point of view. I'm not convinced about the tournament, but it's going to open up some decent rugger, hopefully. And then on Sunday, Teva Bavuma and the Buggers rocked our world. To defend 123 runs in India is absolutely mental. And also to give a massive middle finger to the Indians for curating a pitch that turns, that was bad, and they said, this is the pitch we want, and we want a turning wicket that we're going to basically run through South Africa's lineup. Well, they did run through our lineup. Only for us to run through theirs even faster. I mean, Simon Harmer, what a story. He went to India and reinvented his entire action, his entire technique, his entire bowling style to try and make himself a competitive test player. Comes back 10 years later, takes 8 in the test to help win that test match. In a match where nobody had gone past 39, Temba Bavuma stands tall and goes past 50. The only player to go past 50, the only batting milestone in the test. Marco Jansen with the new ball, doing the business. It was just one of the most ridiculous things to watch. And I said a week ago, we can go 2-0 against India. And somebody said, no, India's far too strong, too much. Well, we're 1-0. We can't lose the series. The question is, can we whitewash India in India? The answer is yes, we can. But we've got to make sure we pitch sharp. The big thing is hopefully KG Rabada back. So to do that without KG as well, I mean, how big is that? Corbin Bosch standing up with a bit of a cameo at the bat. But we've got to adjust our batting lineup. We've got to bring in Deval Breva, somebody who knows how to play spin. You probably need to look at bringing in Zabaya Hamza as well. Also a good player of spin. I don't know if you look at bringing in Mtsimini Mtusani again. He was the ICC Player of the Month for October. Do you look at bringing him in? But you know what? In Shooks, I trust. I don't think there's ever been a coach that has been questioned as much as he had, doubted as much as he has, and this continues to produce results. Yes, we've had some shockers in the one-day arena and the T20 recently, but we've also had some ridiculous results. From a test match point of view, did you know Temba Bavuma has not lost a test as captain? My GOAT. And this weekend, we're going to see test match number 2. We're going to see Boks versus Ireland. United are back to ruin my life. Ferrari's back to ruin my life. SA20 is just over a month away. It's all starting to hot up as we get to the end of this year. Festive season sport. It's going to be absolutely epic.